Okay. Um, so we have one pending proposal that at least showed up in the query, um, which is this question of allowing different preludes. I think there's really no change here. We're still wanting to do this, still lacking sort of
Um,
lobby volunteers. Is that correct?
there is actually a bit of an update on this, which is to say the last week's summary, that probably wasn't a complete summary, and I should update that. But we last week, because of our discussion, we more or less came to the conclusion that this really needs to be heavily delegated over to the libs team, which is to say we were generally in favor of um, this is something that we're prepared to do some work on if it's something the libs team wants and has a proposal to use, and that the actual change in terms of what should be in the new prelude should be up to the uh, libs team, and that our role is more, are we prepared to do per edition preludes and just change the part of the compiler that says what prelude do you import based on what edition you are, if that's what the libs team wants. And the general consensus seemed to be, yeah, sure, we'd do that. And that's about the extent to which this is a Lang team concern. The rest of it is libs.
So do we feel like we even need, like, in some sense, I don't know what is needed here procedurally, so to speak. Like, we can give our green light to doing it, and there could be a PR that creates, which we FCP. I'm not convinced an RFC is really necessary, but uh, I guess that's a question.
We could
Yeah,
actually go on boats.
yeah, I was just gonna agree. I feel like this is if libs wants to do this, then there's some work from the compiler team. But like, I guess other than maybe we would object to the language, like it doesn't really feel like something that we really are involved in any significant way. Maybe there's a checkbox somewhere that we, but otherwise we're like kind of out of it.
Yeah,
Uh,
perhaps we could just FCP this MCP and like decide to agree that what that FCP means is we're not chartering a project group. We need to decide what should be in the prelude and to make the proposal and pitch. And then when that is ready, then we're prepared to review and sign off on the actual mechanism for per edition preludes.
I'm thinking about how the main use I know of at this moment is the format macro. I'm sure there are others. So,
There were several others brought up.
right. I guess I mean the main use that's kind of pre-existing or that's sort of agreed on to some extent anyway. Uh, yeah, okay. So I think what we're saying is we we approve of this. Someone needs to do the implementation work. I think this is a side note that I feel like, you know, drumming up and directing this implementation work remains an interesting challenge for us as an organization, but uh, and it kind of falls on us and kind of doesn't. Um, but the the libs team should prepare, like, should decide on other things that may or may not go into such a addition, but we're not opposed to the concept. That's what it comes down to. All right. Hey, I guess we can FCP. I tend to prefer to FCP on the PRs. I think I would advocate for that also here versus here because this is very high level. And so what does FCPing really say? Not much, right? Um, so
Yeah,
I would be happy to close with disposition of we are approve of the idea and we encourage implementation. Then I think the question is how can we make that happen? But that's a separate question. So,
yeah, I think it would be better with like FCP, like laying his tab on the FCP for like whatever like PR to the Rust repo creates two preludes and the ability to import different ones based on the edition tab flag and stuff.
All right.
That seems fair. We don't really need to sit here and sign off on we think
Yeah.
we probably
I'm kind of losing you, Josh, but
sign
all right. I'm going to put it as disposition.
off. We can't just say our disposition is generally honest.
Okay, great. We'll circle back to it next meeting, but that's where we're at. That sounds fine. Looking at the oh yeah. Looking at the board, I don't think so. We have some pending charters and things. I haven't gotten around to updating this, but I think there's no new proposals. Are there any comments on any of these active projects? Const evaluation, async foundations, safe transmute. There's a pending RFC for safe transmute. Let me skim through and look, but like starting with safe transmute. I guess I wasn't here for the last meeting, but well, I guess this is still the current status, right? People should look at the RFC and post comments.
Yeah. There is still some very ongoing discussion about the mechanism in this. And there's a lot of trying to figure out exactly what that should look like and avoiding accidentally exposing the ability to transmute into a struct.
Okay, is that happening on the RFC thread?
That's happening primarily in Zulip, and then summaries are being posted to the RFC thread. But yeah, I think that discussion has mostly wrapped up and is getting towards like what's the best way to solve the problem, but there seems to be underlying agreement, and like here's the new proposal for a minimal what needs to be in the compiler.
So do you think there's going to be a major change to the RFC as a result?
Locathor, you made a comment in the chat. Would you describe it as major? I haven't gotten a chance to read the new change yet.
The sort of the minimum viable product was slimmed down from the previous proposal, as I understand. So it's even more minimal to sort of create basic usefulness. And then it can grow into the previous proposals from there.
Okay. So when you say MVP here, you mean like the core mechanism, or you mean the goals?
The minimum amount that could be stabilized and deliver something useful while not accidentally blocking any future expansions to the whole overall system.
Okay. So it sounds like it might make sense to wait. If somebody, suppose me, has not read the RFC, it might make sense to wait until it gets some updates. Does that sound accurate?
I think that the updates have been committed into the RFC, so reading it now would be a useful task.
I see. Okay. All right. Sounds good. I think on the foundations, to be honest, I haven't fully caught up from the last week or two, but the last thing I know of is that we were going to post the stream RFC, and that's still true. I'm not going to update because there's nothing that changed here. Does anyone else have thoughts of what has changed?
Not something that has changed, but a question. Did we resolve the question of to what extent this is a Lang thing? It seemed like last time we brought up the notion that the only real Lang interaction is how might we in the future wish to handle syntax like for or generators or similar, and anything else would very much be libs. I'm wondering if is that still the case, and is there some action we should take on the basis of that realization?
I think that's roughly correct. I don't know. I think the action to take is probably, I guess, who's asked to. We'll tag the RFC with tlibs and make a comment from tlang about these language intersections. Does that sound fine?
Okay.
I'm not aware of any controversy about that, but
I just want to be careful.
Yep, it's a good question. The other thing is actually
not overreaching our jurisdiction is all I was suggesting. I think there's a small degree to which Lang.
Yeah, the only thing I would also point out is there has been some work on a towards an RFC to give warnings about values that are live across yields that shouldn't be. Locathor, you're working on that, right? Or am I mixing that up?
I do not work on async things, no.
Okay, I'm mixing it up. I forgot who it is. Somebody else with an L, I suppose. Well, okay, there has been some work towards live values. Yes, I remember now. Lucius. But the idea being like, if you have some like a mutex guard that is live across a yield, that's probably something you don't want. Right now, that often comes up because of send versus sync. Like that, mutex guards are not sync, and so they can't be shared. So futures that hold them across yield values cannot be shared. But people are looking into a more targeted lens similar to must use. I haven't caught up too closely with that, but that's probably something we'll bring up soon. Okay. Any other comments on async? Good. Cost evaluation. Josh, I see your comment here. Feel free to edit or post an update. All right, moving on. I don't have any major updates on these implementation PRs. One thing I will say about FFI Unwind is that in our most recent meeting, we were talking about starting to pick up work around long jump compatibility. The implementation work, as far as I know, is still ongoing. Haven't heard from the person yet who was doing that, at least not super recently. But we don't have any real updates, just that Batman AOD was interested in starting to push on that a little more. So. And I think, all right, cool. Let's jump back to the agenda. So project board review, so newly created RFCs. Still have to fix the thing. This makes way too many links. But we've got what would appear to be a few new RFCs to me. I'm gonna not go over them right now because I think that's probably better for the, well, I was gonna say better for the backlog, but the struggling through these things. Oh my God, there's so many things here. But if anyone really wants to make a comment on some of these new ones.
I'm pretty sure all of these are from years ago, because like the highest one is in the low thousands.
All right, so much the better.
Yeah, the mechanism for determining what's newly created doesn't seem to be quite functional.
Yeah, that's fine. Skip over that. Safe transmute was nominated. Did we already cover all the whatever updates are needed? I'm assuming yes. Okay. Or do we want to leave it nominated? I don't see why. P-high issues, nothing new. Nominated PRs. So this first one, 75-502, use implicit, not explicit rules for promotability. Yeah, we've been covering this for a while. Looks like we're ready to go. FCP's done. I'm going to remove the nomination then. Nothing more to say here.
Yep.
Permit uninhabited enums to cast into ints. Yeah. So we've got a pending FCP.
Scott nominated this, but I'm not sure why. Maybe just to tell people to check tick boxes.
Yeah, that seems fine. So basically, right, this is allowing, yeah, I remember this. So basically we're allowing people to, we're slightly extending the set of enums to include those with no variance. So the rule is basically if all the variants do not have data, which is really true, you have no variance. And that's because macros sometimes have 0 variance. I better check my box. Duh. I guess that might be enough to push it. Sometimes RFCbot doesn't notice that. I forget if that's the syntax. Maybe it is. Let's move on. Lint on implicit ABI. Okay.
So this was my implementation of the thing we discussed probably 3 or 4 weeks back.
Yeah.
The crater run came back with around 500 crates broken by the deny lint, or I guess 700 crates. So we probably don't want to land it as denied by default.
Really?
Nothing in there looked too out of the ordinary, just people not having the ABI on various functions.
Okay. So I guess the question is, do we want to land it allow or warn by default? At all?
I remember we talked about this a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I remember being conflicted about whether we should warn for this or not.
I think the major argument in favor is both some people find it surprising, but also as we introduce C unwind, there's a bit more of a choice to be made.
Right, I'm really sympathetic to the idea of like what an annoying bug it would be to not be able to figure out why, and it's because you didn't put C unwind. Right.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that seeing C is going
Right,
to.
obviously. Yeah.
It might help you. It might cause you to dig a little deeper than you otherwise would. But
I mean, if you knew, like, if you know about the issue, then it's less likely that you'll not notice that you failed to put it if you explicitly put C, right?
right.
If you don't know anything about it, then you're probably kind of screwed.
Does this have a machine usable suggestion?
Not yet, but if we decide to land it as something that is warned by default or denied by default, regardless, I can work on that.
I feel like I'd be a lot more comfortable with a warn by default that had a machine fixable suggestion.
I think my personal opinion is that I would lean towards saying that we don't land it as in this edition, and we make it an edition idiom lint for the next edition.
Yes. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to take some notes on this point.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So that suggests we may want to land it allow by default, but just to get the work committed. So you're saying, just to be sure I understood, you were proposing targeting like 2024 for a hard deny?
Either 2024 or 2021, depending on sort of timelines and whether. But
I feel like
it looks like Josh wants to do it sooner, I think, but I'm not sure if I'm understanding correctly.
No, I was thinking that warn and like we just turned the warning on the same release as 2021, right? Like that's what we did in 2018, right? Things that we broke, we started a warning in the same release, and then you could cargo fix as part of that.
Yeah, so I think the plan is that we'll have the addition can make some things go from warn to deny, like can affect what the default setting is. And normally we would go to deny in the new edition and warn in the old ones. So I would be okay personally with warning by default and deny in 2021 with a machine fix. But I think for now I would be in favor of landing with allow until we have a machine fix. It is,
Okay.
yeah. I'm wondering.
It's a simple patch. Most of the changes are from test failures in Rustling Rust because like half of our UI tests have extern in some variant or another without putting the C.
Okay, I mean, I don't actually care if we land the PR as is or not, but I'm not opposed to it. Put it that way. But this is, I think, the proposal. FCP a PR that makes it warm by default and has a machine fix. Also tie it to 2021 edition. Roughly that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I will update the PR and put a comment there summarizing our discussion and then find someone to review it.
Great. All right, nominated issues. This one, this feels like we already, well, is that because issues and PRs are not distinguished? Yeah, okay. These are all, I feel like I updated this, but maybe I didn't do it in the repo. Very well. I guess we're at the end of our meeting. Short meeting today. Any final things people want to bring up? All right. Thanks, everyone.
Actually,
I do have one topic that I think should probably be.
Go for it.
one sec. There was that PR that there's a RFC that actually. Okay, I can't even remember what it was. So I can't. But it was this Knox made a pull request that got a lot of attention last week. Around dying sized.
I'm not sure about. I didn't know. I didn't even notice. Okay, if you can find it, it'll be helpful.
It's just 2984. Just basically get proposing dying sized.
Is that an RFC or a?
It's an RFC, yeah.
All right.
It's not, the RFC itself is nothing particularly new. It's sort of just dying sized and a way to get the metadata of any given type. I wonder if there's anything that we can move to advance any of these. I think so. When we talked about this a few years ago, it was sort of, I felt like the consensus in the Lang team was that we'd rather just make the two size eval and line eval warn. Oh, sorry, not warn, panic.
Yeah. So actually, that.
I wonder if we can advance this anyway.
That reminds me that we didn't discuss design meetings, and I specifically had proposed that 2 design meetings, one of which was related to this, which is that I wanted to talk about RFC 2580.
Yeah.
And now I guess I would include this RFC, which I haven't read, but I do feel like we should be able to make some progress here. I kind of feel like all that's missing is someone to survey the work and sort of talk about it, and us to agree that we're feeling comfortable with it. Like a lot of the hard work has been done. We have to put our stamp on it. And I think it is worth reviewing that. I feel like I would be good with that. I would probably want a week to prepare for a meeting, but that's what I thought would be the next step. Should we try to schedule a meeting to talk it over? People can
Yeah, we could.
Like what did you feel? I'm trying to remember about, you said just now that you felt the Lang team's consensus from before. Can you repeat what you said? Because I'm wondering if I'm
That we would not add dime size, but we would just have a runtime panic for calling size of val on an extern type. On the pointy or metadata stuff, I think we haven't ever talked about it as a Lang team.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so maybe I'm forgetting what RFC 2580 was about, but I don't recall it necessarily.
Yeah, this is like Knox's PR short combines that with the extern type stuff as sort of a single.
I see.
And also, I mean, Knox's PR doesn't cover the vtable types that the RFC has, so it's sort of a. So I think the motivation for this RFC was that the author wanted to restrict something to types that are a single word, references are a single word. So that would be include extern types. So that would be like, something that is in this RFC would be question mark dime size plus pointy meta equals unit. But whereas the other one was about manipulating the vtable type and stuff. So that's like two different motivations.
Right. So I agree with your consensus that I'm trying to page this back in, that we didn't want to add a whole new question mark sort of set of family of traits around something that is truly unsized as opposed to dynamically sized. That's what it came down to, right?
Yeah.
I think I still stand by that. Does the RFC propose otherwise?
Yeah, this RFC proposes adding. It's the same proposal there's always been. There'd be a new question mark trait called dime size that is implemented by everything extern types.
I see. So I hadn't wanted to open that bucket. What would we, to settle the question definitively in favor of, not having a static division, we would basically stabilize something about extern.
Yeah, I think we would have to, stabilize extern types and change the behavior of the two functions to panic if they're called with them. Well, I think right now they just return 0, which seems strictly worse than panicking.
Yeah.
Or maybe not, but I don't know. It doesn't seem good to me.
What's the issue? Do you remember the issue number where this was being discussed?
Previously?
Yeah.
Yeah, no idea.
Have to find it. All right.
Yeah.
I guess the question
Probably
in the room is whether anyone disagrees with this. Like whether we want to revisit this question, like Josh, for example, or other team members. Or if you want to think about it, also fine.
So I still generally feel the same that I did then, which was that I don't think we should introduce this distinction in the type system, at least not at this time, and that I don't think that it's a blocker to doing so, or I don't think doing so is a blocker to fixing the size of val and similar. We can just fix those to panic. So I don't feel like that is inherently tied together, but I'm also fairly open to being convinced otherwise.
Okay. That's kind of where I'm at, module this last statement. It's hard for me to imagine what would justify such a, it was sort of intrusive change. But you mentioned in the chat, I think, Josh, that this desperately wants a project group. What were you referring to there?
Just, I feel like the proposer of this more or less said, oh, I'm writing one RFC because it feels like there are 3 RFCs in this area and I want to make progress by trying to find common ground. And that doesn't sound like, oh, I should write a 4th RFC. That sounds like, oh, we need a project group to deal with a coordinated set of how do we solve the DST / metadata / 5 other things problem.
I guess the question is like, how much we think that pursuing custom, you have to kind of narrow down on what the goals are, but if the goals are custom DSTs, how much do we think that's something worth pursuing right now versus trying to take some conservative steps towards, and let it lie for a little while longer. I think
so.
But
I think there's a lot of value in a solution to the problem. Whether we should do it right now is a different question. I do think it's a problem that needs solving. I also suspect that it, I don't want to say overlaps with, but rather a lot of the people who are currently spending a lot of their effort on safe transmute may start caring about that once safe transmute is done, because it's a reasonable follow-on to say, hey, I want to do interesting parsing of data structures that may be variably sized. I think it would be really interesting to approach the safe transmute folks and say, hey, after you're done with the first round of safe transmute, would you be interested in driving forward a solution to the DST problem and trying to pull some of this together? It's a group we have experience with, and it's a group that very much cares about this class of problems, and they could potentially pull in another person or two. So my proposal would be defer until safe transmute is done, but start talking with safe transmute folks to say, hey, would you be willing to do this next?
yeah, that's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about those two as overlapping.
Yeah, they don't overlap in function. It's that the same people care about both. They're both related to, I want to parse and work with interesting binary data structures from memory. Safe transmute gets you the initial round, and DSTs come in when you want to start saying, oh, I have these 27 different data structures that all start with a fixed size header, and then it might be a bunch of different sizes. This comes up in a lot of systems applications or parsing applications or protocol applications.
I think it's, yeah, they have to do with representation, right?
Right, exactly. And I also think the safe transmute folks have the right notion of how can we do as little as possible in the language and compiler so that the rest can be done in libraries. And I would love to see that approach applied to dynamically sized types.
Yeah, I would also, because when I think about problem space, it can get pretty sprawling. You know, from external types to custom DSTs to wanting thin crate objects and so on. It'd be nice if we built something that, you know, allows a lot of that to exist in the crate ecosystem and not built into the language.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I'm trying to think about it. In particular, the thing I was wondering about was custom DST in terms of priorities. I hadn't really thought about it as connecting to the safe or unsafe code effort. I see Locathor also posted a comment saying C++ interop people seem to have interest. Like, I think that's what's missing for me and would be useful is both elaborating something about what exactly the scope of the group would be, but also connecting it to here are the kinds of use cases. And those two are very compelling to me. Safe or unsafe and C++ interop are things I think are really important to the language. But
Yeah, it's worth noting that you can get pretty far here with purely unsafe code and no additional lang support in terms of dealing with in-memory data structures that don't really have compile time understood size. The point of teaching the language more about this should be to be able to do it with more safe code.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the unsafe I've written has been about wanting dynamically sized objects that I have a thin pointer to.
Right.
And so,
Okay, you're making a persuasive case. This seems to tie into the roadmap. Maybe we should encourage people to write roadmap posts. But okay. So in terms of immediate actions on this RFC, I think it's pretty clear we're not going to accept the RFC as it's written because it kind of goes against this established consensus. So it'd be good to skim it. But so somebody could leave a comment to that effect. But I would like to follow forward with RFC 2580, or at least talk about it. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I've already been posting on the RFC. So
what's that, folks?
I could leave a comment. I've already been posting on the RFC, so I could leave a comment. And I think just that we are interested in pursuing something in this space and that we care about moving this whole thing forward would be like, very positive for the people who care. So it would be good.
Sounds good.
Okay, we're interested in seeing the space move forward, and we're like, more elaboration on the, I don't know. But yeah, but still skeptical of introducing new question mark traits for the extern use case. Okay, and about does a design meeting talk about RFC 2580 then and bring some of this back in scope? Make sense? The only reason I can see not to is if we wanted to say, you know what, let's just not even open the door because we may want to do a more thorough group around this. But
I think a design meeting makes sense, but rather than saying, let's discuss this specific RFC in a design meeting, I think it would make sense to invite the requisite interested parties and have a design meeting on how do we actually want to solve the problem. Invite some of the safe transmute folks, invite some of RFC 2580 folks, Boats, you're clearly steeped in a bunch of this, you should come as well. Like,
yeah,
I don't just mean, I mean beyond just your Lang team capacity.
that seems potentially reasonable. I'm just thinking that might be a longer time frame. Like you yourself sort of said, well, I guess if we're just talking about what will we do after safe transmute or something.
Right. I think that people could spare an hour to discuss it. And then if the result ends up being, yeah, we care a lot about this, we'd love to tackle that. Like, it would be fine to say, let's enqueue that behind safe transmute if that seems appropriate.
I think we just need something specific that we're talking about, though, like an agenda for it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. What is the agenda?
What does a good solution to DSTs look like? How do we get a handle on the landscape? Who's interested in driving it forward?
But those are such open-ended questions that it feels like it would not be very structured. Like everyone has their own ideas about all those things. Yeah.
Let's hash it out in Zulip a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're at right now. Because I was hoping we could use the RFC exactly to keep the meeting kind of crisp, and let's look specifically for like what does this introduce that might cause problems with some of the ways we might want to go. But I do think this more general question is interesting. All right. I'd like to bring in, like, I guess in Zulip we can more easily bring in some of those other folks also. But any other thoughts? Or shall we close the meeting?
I have a topic that I'd like to discuss. I'm wondering if you could turn off the recording for it. It's not RFC related.
Sure. Why not? All right, we'll end the meeting here. Thanks, everybody.